So I was going to record this update video walking along the hiking trail that's near my house because it's beautiful and it's green, but the humidity was like 150% or something like that. And as I started walking, I noticed that like my phone camera lens was so fogged up, it would have looked terribly, wouldn't be able to see anything. So now I'm in the conference room at the office where we rent office space right now. Recently, we rented 2 office rooms. One for my assistant and I to work in, and one for Tim and Rachel to work in. And then we also have access to some conference rooms, and that's been really helpful for us. We kind of have a fully functional office for the first time, which has been really awesome. So we've been here for the last several months, and so here's the conference room that I am recording this from. I wanted to update you on a couple of things going on. This will be simpler than the last few updates. I don't have a ton of different things to cover, but I've got a couple of really cool things to cover. Like one really big thing that I've been waiting to talk to you about. But first, just a couple of quick things. We just turned 4. We just had our 4-year anniversary, and so happy birthday to us. I posted kind of a photo album on the blog if you want to check it out of kind of the pictures from my favorite memories from the last year. Pictures from speaking in Denmark and in Canada and an outreach we did and just some of the different things that have been kind of the highlights. If you want to see some of the highlights, I'll try to remember to link that in the description below. Generally, right now, all hands are on deck, preparing to actually shoot the Sidewalk Counseling module. We've been working on the content for this for a long time, and now and I've also been in the process of researching equipment. And both of those kind of pre-production tasks are almost complete. So we're planning on shooting the entire module over the period of August and September. And we're hoping to release it in early November. And so we've got just these little things just to try to get done before we shoot. And we've also got people that we're flying in. So we're kind of working on getting everyone's schedules synced up, and we are really excited about finally getting into the actual production mode of that Sidewalk Counseling training. I think it's going to be fantastic. So generally, all hands are on deck right now. We're not doing a lot of speaking and stuff right now. I've got a couple of trips that are booked for later this year. I know I'm speaking in Ohio. I know I'm speaking at UC Berkeley. It's I think Jacob joked, bring your bulletproof vest for that one. But yeah, there's going to be a pro-life conference at UC Berkeley put on by one of our favorite pro-life groups. And so David B. Wright will be there too, and some other great speakers. And so that's going to be great. Here's a quick thing that you could do for us if you haven't done this for us yet. I've got a couple of different things I'm going to ask you to consider doing. Because these videos are really made for our diehard fans and donors. This is like a kind of a long form. You really want to know what's behind the scenes at ERI, what's really going on. This is kind of where you're going to get the most detail. And I don't want it to be too long, but at the same time, I'm not really centering myself. This is definitely not scripted, but this is kind of a sense of what's really going on. I like kind of the accountability and the chance to just share if you're supporting us, what's going on? What is it that you're supporting right now? What's going on right now? Not just, there's new articles every other week and podcasts and things like that. What is going on at the office? So one of the things that we recently did was we had a meeting with a book agent. Because, and some of you already know, we have several books that we want to publish. We've got kind of 3 that are sort of in the works right now, and then another 2 that are kind of more long-term books that we, and that's just what we know we want to write right now. And so book publishing is definitely part of the future of ERI. It's a really good way to put out a lot of content at once. It builds a lot of credibility for a lot of people. It's definitely the kind of thing that we ought to be doing. But we've been focusing all of our writing toward blogging, and then of course, creation for speeches and the course and things like that. And the book publishing industry has changed a lot in the last 10 or 20 years. And one of the main way that it's changed is that it kind of used to be, and this is not just according to me, this is according to experts in book publishing. In fact, I've heard this from now so many different people in the publishing industry, like everyone says the exact same thing. And it used to be that a traditional book publisher was the primary one responsible for marketing and getting the book sold. They paid an author to write a good book, based on a book proposal. And the author would write it, and then the publisher would do most of the marketing, selling it and all of that. And things have really changed where the publishing industry, it's not like they don't market the book at all, but so much more responsibility is now, instead of being on the publisher's hands, on the author's hands, him or herself, to publish it. And so what that means is, for you to publish a book, you don't just have to be a really good writer with a great idea. You now also have to have a large platform, a group of people, a tribe, a group of people who love your work and are likely to buy the book. Or maybe you've got to be on, doing huge speaking tours with, a whole lot of people that, might buy the book after the talk or something like that. And so if you don't have that, even if you have a great idea, most publishers aren't going to touch it because they want to see that you're going to be able to sell a lot of copies on your own without the publisher doing anything. I don't fully understand all the different reasons why that shift happened, but that shift definitely has happened. So that's a problem for us because we're only 4 years old. We don't have a huge platform yet. And so certainly there are different metrics that we can use to show we do have some kind of a tribe, and they are willing to follow us. They're willing to buy our stuff. We've got, a lot of people who've bought the Equip for Life course. That would be like one kind of a metric that's useful. But frankly, one of the main metrics that publishers are looking at now are your Facebook and Twitter numbers. It's your social media stats is what they're looking at. And our current social media stats, our Facebook page, I think has, right around 2,000 or something like that. That's not enough for a publisher to get really excited. So all that to say, we really want to publish books, and we've got some really good ideas, and we're in works on some of them, but it would really help us. If you haven't liked our Facebook page, follow us on Twitter, do those things. Just be like that single thing, if a lot of people do that, is going to make it easier for us to get books published. So that's a quick thing. The main thing I want to tell you about this thing that I've been teasing for the last couple of update videos, but I haven't wanted to get into because I wasn't sure exactly when we would publish this article. But now we finally have. But for those of you who don't read all the articles on our blog or a lot of the people listening to this are like really into podcasts and not as much into reading articles. And this is a lengthy one. This is a lengthier one than by about 200% than our average post. I had this idea last year that I'm really excited about. I think it's one of the best ideas I've ever had. And I'm not a self-aggrandizing kind of a person. I'm not so when I say this is an idea I'm really proud of, that's a meaningful statement for me. I'm really proud of a lot of things that our staff has done. But I'm not always patting myself on the back. But this was a really good idea. And we finally published it. So I've talked about it in public a few times. And so if you've seen me speak in the last year, you maybe have heard me mention this at least briefly, but finally now there's an article out. And so I'll just kind of summarize it. I won't go through everything that's in the article, but I'll summarize the idea and tell you what I would like to see you do as an action step for it. Basically, I have an idea on how to reduce the rate of Christian abortions. When I use the word Christian, I'm using it in kind of the large ecumenical way, like Protestants, Catholics, Anglican, the whole group of people who go to church who love Jesus. There are a lot of women who are Christians who have abortions. The best statistic we have on this is actually from a CareNet study. Alan Guttmacher Institute did or included this in a study that they did a while ago, but they didn't do a good job distinguishing between people who just label themselves as Protestant or Catholic versus people who actually go to church, who take their faith seriously. So CareNet did a survey of over 1,000 women who had had abortions, and they learned that about 40% of them not only identified as Protestant or Catholic or something, were actually going to church that week or month that they had the abortion. So 40% of, let's say, serious Protestants and Catholics. And I know there are exceptions there. There are some people who are very serious about their faith who don't go to church, at least for a period of time. So I get that. But generally speaking. Like what you don't want to be including here, if you want an accurate statistic, is, there's a lot of people who will call themselves Christian or Catholic or something like that. And it's more of a cultural thing. It's how they grew up. It just means maybe that they go to church or mass like on Christmas and Easter or something like that. And we love those people. Those people are very important. It's just that if you're trying to get a sense of abortions in the church, you kind of want to take that group of people out of the equation and just be looking at people who are definitely serious about their faith. It's kind of hard to track that in a way other than how often they go to church. So anyway, that's the reason these surveys ask these questions. So let's just say, for sake of argument, that statistic is accurate. 4 out of 10 women having abortions went to church that week or month. That's serious. That's a really big problem. There are a lot of abortions in the church. There are women who love Jesus who are killing their babies. And unlike, I think, some people having abortions, I think generally speaking, these women know what they're doing. They're not confused about whether or not fetal humans have value, because just about every church is going to be teaching, like they might not teach about abortion, but we teach that human beings are intrinsically valuable because they're made in God's image. That counts for all humans, not just the ones that are born. And so that means that these people are going to also go through a lot of guilt. It's going to be harder for them to have a close relationship with God, because anytime that you suffer with intense guilt, it's harder to talk to God about that because you're feeling too guilty to talk to God about that. Like, we've all experienced that probably, or a lot of the people watching this have experienced that in some form. And so it raises the question, why do so many women in the church have abortions? And I think the answer to that, or part of the answer to that, is that it is a much bigger deal socially for a Christian woman to get pregnant out of wedlock than for an atheist woman to get pregnant out of wedlock. Like, who cares about the atheist who gets pregnant out of wedlock? Like, whatever. But if you're very religious, that's a big deal. And so certainly there are women who are coerced into abortions by their parents, by the jerky boyfriend. That happens a lot. There are some people who have abortions because they just feel like they can't handle this right now. They don't have the kind of money or the kind of time, or they're in the middle of school, whatever. But certainly those are all big, reasons why people have abortions. But I think sometimes Christians have abortions too. And I know, because I've talked to a lot of them now about this, that part of what's going on for them is also a fear of what happens if her pastor finds out. What happens if the youth pastor finds out? What happens if the bullies in the youth group find out that she is pregnant out of wedlock? And so even though they know this is a baby, sometimes they feel like the least evil option, like it's all bad options for them. They end up justifying going to like a Planned Parenthood and having the abortion. So this is a really big problem, and there's an epistemological problem that is part of this, I think. Epistemological meaning like what you know, or how you justify your beliefs. So I think a lot of these women who have abortions in the church are going to churches that if, like the pastor found out, like he would do a good job, like he would handle it well. Not everyone, obviously there are bad churches out there, I get that. But not every church is like that. There's a lot of good churches. But the problem is that the women in the church don't know that. If they haven't seen this handled before, or if they haven't heard, here's how we handle this in the church. So they assume. And I suspect most people assume that it's going to be worse, not better, than it actually would be. And so a lot of women are assuming that their church, and their good church with a good pastor, would freak out and it would be really, really bad for them. And then they have abortions out of that fear. That's a really big problem. And so, what if every pastor made it part of the culture of the church, like everyone in the church knew this is a safe place for unwed pregnant women? And by safe, I don't mean that we're treating sin like it's not sin, or like we're condoning sin or something like that. We're saying it is not sinful to be in the state of pregnant. It is not sinful in and of itself to have a baby growing inside of you. Maybe why there's a baby there might be as the result of sin, and that should be dealt with. We should, figure out, what's the problem here, and how do we kind of get out of this pattern and all of that. Fine, but having a baby in a like as part of your belly is growing as a result of there being a baby in you, that in and of itself shouldn't be like a scarlet letter. And that sounds obvious to a lot of people listening and watching this. It is not obvious to a lot of people. That distinction is really important. And so the whole church needs to know that if you get pregnant, you don't need to rush to Planned Parenthood. And so how do you do that? Well, I think basically it needs to come from the top down. Pastors need to be proactive and not reactive on this. There are all kinds of things that pro-life people want pastors to do about abortion. There's a long list of things that a lot of pro-life people would love to see their pastor doing. I think this is a very small ask. I am just asking for pastors to pledge that once or twice a year, they'll make a quick announcement during the service. Hey, as a reminder, here's who our church is going to be. Here's how we're going to handle it if someone gets pregnant out of wedlock. There's some things that we believe, there's some things that we don't believe, and there's some things that we're going to do. For example, we're not going to shame her. We're not going to kick her out of the church just for being pregnant. We're going to love on her. We're going to celebrate life. We're going to celebrate people doing the hard thing. We're going to find practical, real ways to love on her. We're going to throw her a baby shower. We're going to, does she need some childcare after the baby's born? There's some different things that we can do to try to help her because life is precious. And we don't want our people feeling like they need to run to an abortion facility as a result of a lapse in judgment or something like that. What if we did that? And youth pastors would need to be doing it too in their youth group, maybe more often than twice a year, maybe once a quarter or something, because there is a lot of bullying in youth groups that happens. It's sad but true. And so my guess is that if this happened, there would be a lot fewer Christian abortions. If this happened all over the place, if this became a cultural revolution that just spread like a wave across the country, I think there would be fewer abortions. And one of my pieces of evidence for that is from a conversation that I had with a friend of mine named Shannon, who works at the Fresno Pregnancy Care Center as a client advocate. She was telling me about a friend of hers, and this story is in the article, and we're calling her friend Anne. It's not her real name, but we're saying that her friend Anne gets a false positive pregnancy test. So she's not actually pregnant, but she thinks she's pregnant. And she is, good Christian woman, but she gets pregnant, and she is psychologically, emotionally on her way to Planned Parenthood. And Shannon said, here's the thing, Josh, I know her pastor. Her pastor is super pro-life. He supports the Pregnancy Care Center. He's great. He'd be it would be fine. It would have been fine. But Anne didn't know that. And so Anne is basically, scheduling an abortion appointment. And so I asked Shannon, okay, alternative universe. Imagine everything is exactly the same, except Anne's pastor has been doing this thing for the last couple of years. He's been reminding the church, here's who we're going to be, here's how we're going to handle it if someone gets pregnant. Would that have made a difference? If when Anne gets her positive or her false positive pregnancy test, is Anne then basically on her way to Planned Parenthood? And Shannon said no. She said, I think that would have made the difference. So we should do this. We should be doing this. And so I'm encouraging pastors to take a pledge that they're going to do this. So what the article does is it explains this idea, and it also responds to some of the likely concerns from pastors that pastors might have as a response to hearing this idea, like maybe this is condoning sin or too close to condoning sin, like it's being too gracious to people who are having premarital sex. I also listed some practical tips for bringing this idea to your pastor, because I know a lot of the time there's going to be a person in a congregation that reads the article and gets really excited about it and wants to share it with their pastor. And there are bad ways to share ideas with pastors, And so I've talked to a lot of pastors and priests, even a Catholic bishop, about this idea, and was always asking, tell me what, if a congregant, if like a pro-life person in the congregation hears this idea, how would you advise them to go to their pastor in a spirit of humility and in a way that would be more likely to be effective, more likely for the pastor to be able to hear the idea and take it seriously? So I've got some practical tips for that in the article as well. And then at the bottom, there's a pledge form. And the one thing that's not on the article yet, but will be in the future, is going to be one of those custom Google Maps. So you can make a Google map that's got pins in it. I'm going to be, once we've got enough pledges in, like once we've got 20 or 30 pledges in or something like that, we're going to set up a Google map that we'll update, once or twice a week with pins for all the churches that have taken the pledge. So there's certain questions, kind of demographic survey questions that I'm asking in the pledge that are private just for the pastor. Just gives us a sense of where their church is at. But there are a couple of things that are public. So that the name of the church and the address is a public thing. And so you'll be able to see, here are all the churches that have pledged to make themselves safe places for women who get pregnant out of wedlock. So what I would ask you to do is to share this idea. For you to share probably you need to read the article, because I'm not going to go through the whole thing right now. This is not an audio blog. I'm not giving you all the practical tips and stuff. So I would encourage you, go ahead and read the article. Go to equalrightsinstitute.com/pastor, click on the link to the article and read it. It'll take 20 minutes, and bring this idea to your pastor in the wisest way that you can, because I want to imagine if we could get 5,000 pledges. That would be amazing. That would make such a difference. But these pledges have to happen one at a time. So I'll be meeting with local pastors individually for coffee and lunch to share with them this idea. But there's pastors all over the place. There's people watching our videos that are all over, not just the country, but the world. And so would you bring this idea to your pastor? And probably that's not just sending him an email with a link. That's better than nothing. And really open pastors that you already have a good relationship with, that might be sufficient. But generally speaking, I think this is the thing to try to have a meeting with them about. And I've got some tips in the article for things not to say and things to say. And in order to maximize the chances that the pastor will actually take the pledge and follow through with this, I've got some tips for you. So would you help me to make this article, this idea, go viral? So yes, share it on Facebook, share it on Twitter, tell your friends, but also probably you want to individually meet with your pastor and talk to him about the idea. You probably do that first, and let's see how many pledges we can get. Imagine with me what would happen if that map was filled with pins of churches that were declaring, yes, we are going to be a safe place for unwed pregnant women. Here's what we're going to do. Here we are declaring that we are going to love people well who are in this circumstance, that we're going to love people with the attitude that Jesus had with a woman caught in adultery, and to say, in light of what Christ has done for us, here's what we're going to do for men and women who are in this situation. We would literally save lives. I basically think every church that does this, there will be lives saved. We might not always know it, not this side of heaven, but there will be lives saved as a result of this. This is really important. This is one of the most meaningful things that you can do for us right now, or at least related to the work that we're doing. And so I would ask you to please consider doing that. And I hesitate to say this as I close, because if I give you too many things to do, that might make it less likely that you do any of them. I'll just share briefly. I'm not going to get into a lot of details on this. I'm just going to share briefly. We could really use more funding. We're at a place where we're going to have to make some pretty rough decisions in probably toward the end of the year if our giving doesn't increase. And that's not something I think I've ever said to donate. Like it's not like I don't want to like put down other nonprofits. And certainly I'm not going to name any specifically, but like there are some groups where you'll get a letter sometimes. It's like, and it might come like you might get multiple letters like this from the same organization over a period of time. That's like we're about to close our doors if you don't send us funding. We've never done that. And what I'm saying right now is not nearly that dire. Like ERI is not going away if we don't increase our funding. But we do have a fully functioning office now for the first time. We have office space now where our team can collaborate a lot more effectively together. We can have meetings real quick in the same room with marker boards and do brainstorming when we need to. We just did that. We recently, we're going to be putting together some ERI t-shirts. So there's an announcement. I'm not going to tell you what they're going to be, but we came with a bunch of ideas. And we're kind of working out the logistics of how we're going to put them out. But definitely, we came up with some amazing t-shirt ideas, starting with none, or we had one, I think, walking into the meeting. But we left the meeting with like 10 pretty good ideas, and I think like 6 or 7 that were like, we're totally going to make these. And it was just like one of those things where it's like, we just need to get together in a room for an hour and brainstorm. And we did, and it was awesome. We also now have a full-time assistant. For the first time in ERI history, we've had a full-time assistant for the last several months. And she's amazing. Everyone is always talking about how amazing Jen is and how much she gets done. Jen is one of those just get her done kind of people, She takes a lot of initiative. She figures stuff out. She's super resourceful. And so we can just kind of tell her, like, here's the thing that we need to get done. And she works on it. She's fast. And ERI is so much more effective now as a result of that. But we need to increase our funding if we're going to be able to stay in actual office space and be able to keep Jen on full time. And so right now I'm putting together a matching grant. And I'll be putting out a fundraising letter and an email campaign in probably about a month. So if you would like to contribute to that matching grant fund, that I can use to send out to people who are maybe less diehard fans, but be able to say, your giving will be matched, will be doubled as a result of your giving. For a lot of people, that really helps them. And the way I'm going to do this matching grant, and I haven't seen anyone else do this, but I can't imagine I'm the first because it seems like a really obvious idea. But anyway, I haven't seen someone else do it, and we didn't do it the one other time we did a matching grant a couple years ago, is I really want to encourage monthly giving. Like a lot of times with a matching grant, you're encouraging people to make these like one-time gifts. And one-time gifts are awesome, and I appreciate if that's you. There's just some people who only give in kind of big one-time chunks, and I'm totally fine with that. equalrightsinstitute.com/donate. Like, go for it. But monthly giving is so helpful because then we can budget well. And a lot of our giving, a big percentage of our giving is in small to medium monthly gifts. So that's really awesome. And so what I want to say, like, if someone, like, if you're a monthly donor, would you consider increasing? And what I want to do with the matching grant is, like, if you're a $25 a month person and you're willing to double that and go up to like $50 a month, we won't just match $25. Like, we'll match that times 12. We'll match 25 times 12 to say, like, it really makes a difference if you increase your monthly or your quarterly giving. And so if you'd be willing to contribute to that, please reach out to me. Please connect with me. You can contact us through the website. Obviously, you can donate through the website. One of the things you could do, if you can include a little message when you donate online, if you like use your credit card or something. If you wanted to put in the message, I want this to go toward the matching grant fund, I will be keeping good track of that, and I've got a whole spreadsheet for this. That would make a big difference. So I know that's a lot of different asks in one video. So just to sum up, like our Facebook, follow us on Twitter. That's the least important of all these things. Like if you gotta like, oh no, Josh, just give me 2 things, and skip that. But if you can, that's awesome. And it takes like a minute. Share the pastor article. Talk to your pastor or priest about this idea, and consider prayerfully funding this work. And if you're already funding this work, first of all, thank you so much. So much is getting done thanks to you. You are real partners of this ministry. But also, if you're giving, I'm going to ask you to prayerfully consider increasing. Because there are certain things that we want to do, and I'm not going to tell you what they are. There are certain things that we want to do that are only going to happen if we get the funding. We've got some really cool big projects on the horizon, like we're looking past Sidewalk Counseling Module. There's a couple really cool opportunities that we're getting that it's really just going to come down to a question of can we fund it? Can we fund a part-time staff person to take that idea and make it possible, that kind of a thing. And so we're doing great work. We're getting a lot of really great stuff done. It's a worthy ministry to fund. We're not the only great pro-life organization, but I think we're one of them. And it would mean a lot to me if you would consider helping us take this to the next level. Thanks. God bless.